Okay, so I've spent an embarrassing amount of time going through this A.R.G, and I found things. Like, I have decoded every book from the library that Avery read, even the books that didn't make it to the final cut of the A.R.G. Then those random letters that Avery typed, which at first I thought were just a mistake, but when I dug deep into it, it had a whole new meaning and pointed to a possible part 3 of the A.R.G. At the end of episode 2, right before Derlord punches Avery off the platform, Avery types something in chat. Question mark, then this sign, then some random words, which if I try to pronounce, comes to WDA SWAD. And yeah, at first glance it looks like he fumbled his keyboard while falling. But then I started actually looking at it and it doesn't add up. The message showed up 74 frames after he got hit. That's roughly 1.23 seconds. That is fast, like that is really fast. And think about the sequence of inputs that would have to happen accidentally for that message to exist. He would have had to accidentally press T to open chat, then hold shift for the first 2 characters to get the greater than question mark at the start, then let go of shift, type out WDSWAD, and then hit enter to actually send it. All of that in 1.23 seconds while falling, after getting punched. That's not a fumbled keyboard, that's not an accident. The greater than question mark especially is what gets me, because that's not something you just accidentally type. You have to hold shift for that. There's intention behind it. And here's where it gets interesting. If you look at YouTube playlist URLs, they all start with greater than question mark. So this looks like it could be the beginning of a YouTube playlist link. Now I did try plugging it in myself and nothing comes up yet. No playlist, no video, nothing. But the keyword there is yet. And if you actually go to the Google Drive folder where Derlord's footage was supposed to be stored, there's a note sitting there saying the footage has been confiscated by something called the DMS, the Department of Metaphysical Sciences, which is apparently a government organization that has appeared in 2 of Weefees' other A.R.G. videos. Why did they confiscate it? Weefees' exact words were, "Time will tell."
What's happening to Derek? I guess time will tell.
And then at the very end of his recent behind the scenes video, he brings up the question of what actually happened to Derlord, gets right up to the edge of answering it, and then just doesn't. He completely edges the audience and moves on. Now here's the other thing. The original plan for this series was actually 3 parts. Searching for a world that doesn't exist was part 1. Finding it was going to be part 2, ending when Avery blacks out, and destroying it was going to be part 3, starting from Derlord's perspective. Weefees combined them because he wanted to tell the full story faster, but the lore isn't finished. The DMS note, the teasing about Derlord's fate, the chat message pointing to a YouTube playlist that doesn't exist yet, all of it is pointing in the same direction. Okay, this one genuinely breaks my brain every time I think about it, and I'm surprised more people aren't losing their minds over this. So after Derlord sees whatever he sees behind the gate, he sprints back, goes right at the crossroad, mines through the wall, and ends up back in his original mining area, the same strip mine tunnel we see at the very start of his recording, which on the surface sounds fine. He just looped back to where he started, but here's the problem. At the beginning of Derlord's video, when he first mines through that exact same spot, it leads to a cave. A regular cave with moss and trees that eventually takes him to the unusual tree area that starts the whole rabbit hole. That's how the video begins. He mines through a wall and finds a cave, not a crossroad, just a cave. So how, when he mines back through the right side of the crossroad later, does he end up in that same starting mining area? Geographically, that makes no sense. The crossroad is sitting where a cave used to be, or the cave is sitting where the crossroad used to be. Depending on which direction you're traveling through it, the space works completely differently. The only explanation that holds any water at all connects back to everything we've talked about with the second act. So this second act of play is from the King in Yellow book. And if you did not know, the whole A.R.G. is based on the King in Yellow by Robert Chambers. And I have a big theory video on how derlord actually read the second act of the King in Yellow behind the gate, and he did not see any king. According to the book, the second of the play changes your perception of time. Darlord mining back through that wall wasn't just him retracing his steps, it was him ending up in a point in time where the Crossroad existed instead of the cave. Two different versions of the same physical space existing at different points in time, and Darlord slipping between them without even fully understanding what happened. Nobody has a clean answer for this yet, and I think that's completely intentional. Every single pocket dimension or world in this A.R.G. has two gates, an exit gate that takes you to the next level normally, and a skip gate that sends you way further ahead, skipping multiple levels at once. Darlord accidentally found the skip gate in the mountain world when he explored the tree and discovered a second gate at the top instead of just taking the obvious one at the bottom, but that wasn't a one-off thing. It's the entire design of every world. Take the desert area for example. Avery finds this giant obelisk covered in strange runes and just cannot decode them. But here's the thing, if you take those symbols and flip them 180 degrees, they suddenly become readable, enchanting table symbols that spell out the word below. The skip gate is literally right below the obelisk. Then there's the red orchard world, which Weefees calls the orchards, where Avery spends a ton of time investigating strange blocks and counting beds and houses trying to find his way forward. But the whole time, the answer was on the floor. The carpets in every single house are arranged as arrows and they all point toward the center of the map. That's where the skip gate is, sitting underneath the middle hill. Avery walked right over it. Every world has one of these hidden shortcuts, and every world has a clue pointing toward it if you know what you're looking for. This one is genuinely such a cool detail. The Hanging Mountains dimension with all its disappearing and deleting rules is actually based on a real computer science concept called Conway's Game of Life. It's this grid simulation where cells live or die based on very specific rules about their neighbors, and the mountain rules map almost directly onto it. If a mountain has multiple neighbors, one gets deleted. If it has only one neighbor, it gets deleted. If it has none, it gets deleted. It's the same logic, just translated into floating Minecraft islands. And Avery actually makes a joke about Conway's Game of Life in the chat during that section, which tells you he figured out the reference even if he didn't fully understand the rules of the puzzle. Weefees essentially built a computer science simulation inside Minecraft and made it a playable level. So the scene where Darlord figures out that the Avery standing in front of him is fake and then lures him onto that mountain before making him fall into the void, that entire scene is directly inspired by a famous moment in Death Note. If you've seen it, you probably already know exactly which scene. One of the main characters gives another character 3 real rules about a situation and 1 fake rule specifically to catch them in a lie and expose them. That's exactly what Darlord does. He explains the mountain rules to fake Avery but keeps the critical detail about isolated mountains to himself, uses it to set the trap, and then watches it work. The infinite library that both Avery and Darlord explore is absolutely packed with references, and I want to go through the ones that have been identified because some of them are wild. First, there's one written in what looks like Minecraft parkour notation. That one is a reference to the Minecraft video series Parkour Civilization. Then there's the book mentioning a Mr. Strauss, which is pulled from the novel Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes, a story about intelligence and the loss of it, which fits the A.R.G's themes uncomfortably well. The bit that starts with something like, "If you've ever taken a road trip through the Pacific Northwest," is directly lifted from the opening narration of Gravity Falls. This book from the library is my personal favorite, as it is taken from my favorite Minecraft video made by Ish. Then, Battle School will be Horace's choice. That's from The Ruins of Gorlan, the first book in the Ranger's Apprentice series by John Flanagan. And Horace is also the username of the person who actually built every single map and world in this entire A.R.G. So that reference is both a literary nod and a direct credit to the builder hidden inside a book in a library. And then there's the Cosmic Dance book, which contains a quote from Adventure Time. But here's the thing, that book was cut from the final video for pacing reasons. You can only find it if you watch Avery's raw, unedited footage on his channel. It didn't make it into the main A.R.G. at all. What was actually in the church book? So I made an entire video about this already, and if you haven't seen it, go watch it after this. But I'm going to explain it again here because it connects to basically everything else. When Avery enters the church and reads that book, the first 3 pages feel calm and almost comforting. You are safe here. And then says, you are nothing, and everything after that is completely censored. Pages 4 through 11 just blacked out. And after finishing it, Avery spends 12 hours on New Year's Eve tending to that world. Watering wells, putting flowers on graves, cutting overgrown ferns, completely consumed, gone. Now, to understand what actually happened, you need to go back to episode 1. At the end of that episode, derlord goes left at the crossroad, peeks behind a gate, and whatever is there also gets censored. He stands there for 15 seconds before running. People assumed he saw the king in yellow physically, but that doesn't hold up because in Robert Chambers' original 1895 book, the king in yellow has no physical form. The only description you ever get of him across the entire book is a tattered yellow robe and a pallid mask. The madness in Chambers' work never comes from seeing the king. It always comes from the play, specifically the second act, which is described as so overwhelmingly beautiful that reading it destroys your sanity not through horror, but through revelation. And one of the documented side effects is that your perception of time completely breaks down. Past, present, and future stop being separate. We see proof of this with derlord in the library when Avery asks how long he's been playing, and derlord just says he doesn't know, that he's lost time. And we see it with Avery too. Spending 12 hours doing chores without any awareness of time passing is exactly what losing your temporal perception looks like in practice. The censored pages in that church book were the second act of the play. That's what broke Avery, and derlord had already read it behind the gate in episode 1, which is why when he sat in that same church and read the same pages, he just called it disgusting and kept moving. He recognized it. He'd already survived it once. The church is full of details nobody noticed. While everyone was focused on the book and what Avery was reading, barely anyone looked at what was behind him. The symbol on the wall of the church behind the book platform is the symbol of Hastur, the Lovecraftian adaptation of the King in Yellow. It's been sitting there the whole time in plain sight, and most people completely missed it. Then there's the music. The song playing during the church area is pulled from the Chainsaw Man animated movie, specifically from a scene where the main character is reflecting on a difficult choice while this gorgeous piece of music plays in the background. Weefees used it as a direct reference and even had a custom track composed with that Chainsaw Man song given as a reference to the composer. There are so many layers to how the king was built in this video, and they all go deeper than you'd think. The entire climax scene, the merging, the mind being used as a gate, the king being trapped inside someone whose mind then collapses, that whole concept was directly inspired by the finale of Gravity Falls. In that show, the main villain Bill Cipher gets trapped inside the mind of one of the main characters, and then that character gets his memory erased, killing Bill because the vessel he was trapped in no longer exists as it was. Weefees has said Gravity Falls is his favorite show of all time, and he built the king's entire endgame off that moment. Then, when the king's realm starts falling apart in the final scenes and the world begins corrupting, you can catch real Minecraft frames flickering through. Those are actual dimensions from the 2020 April Fool's Day update, which added a bunch of strange, corrupted-looking worlds to the game temporarily. And the sound that plays whenever the king appears, that deep, cosmic rumbling noise, that is literally the sound of a black hole as recorded and published by NASA. Weefees wanted the king to feel like an unstoppable cosmic force and decided nothing sells that better than an actual sound from space. In the pillar puzzle stage, when derlord goes through it, he releases the zombie from the diamond block pillar, and that zombie doesn't burn, which is how derlord figures out the shulker boxes are up in the sky casting shadows, because that's the only explanation for a zombie surviving direct sunlight. So, the zombie serves its purpose as a clue, and derlord solves the puzzle. But then when Avery goes through the exact same stage later, the zombie is gone. Just not there anymore. Except when Avery goes into the water under the gate, he finds a drowned zombie sitting there at the bottom. The zombie that was in the pillar became a drowned zombie after being in the world long enough between Darlord's visit and Avery's. It's such a tiny detail that has zero impact on the story, but whoever thought to include it clearly cared about the world feeling lived in and consistent even in the parts nobody would think to check. So after watching the last video of Weefees, at the very end, Weefees put up some random symbol type things, and of course, Weefees being Weefees, he is trying to tell us something with these, and I am so sure of that. 4 grouped symbols. The first is the Othala or Odal rune, the second is the Raido rune, the third appears to be a stylized Sowilo, and the fourth is the Tiwaz rune. If you just take the first letter of each rune name in order, you get O-R-S-T, which isn't an English word and doesn't immediately mean anything obvious, but if you map those runes to their numerical positions in the Elder Futhark runic alphabet, you get 24, 5, 16, 17, and those numbers could be coordinates, they could be a date, they could be part of a cipher that needs more context to decode. The coordinate theory is interesting because it would potentially point to a specific location in one of the worlds. The date theory is interesting because it might be pointing to when episode 3 drops. I've gone back and forth on this for longer than I'd like to admit, and I genuinely don't have a clean answer yet. If any of you figure it out, please put it in the comments because this is the only piece I couldn't solve, and it's driving me up the wall. Everything else in this A.R.G. has an answer buried somewhere. This one is still open. And knowing how deliberate every single detail in these videos is, I don't think it's random. I think it means something, we just haven't found the right key yet.